Okay, all right, we are going to get started. How many of you are back from the break? How many of you are not yet back from the break? We'll give it a... Oh, everybody's back. Wonderful. How many feel that you're ready to start presenting? How many are dreaming of how many views? In fact, I encourage you to do that with your family. And Maria, if you've got your friends or family over for the weekend, when you go downstairs, maybe you want to share, how many of you are ready for dinner? Just keep practicing the how many of yous until every time you open your mouth, you start with a how many of you. How many are still a little bit unsure about what we're doing here? And if you are, that is okay. We are still only midway through the process. Okay, so today, as part of our deconstruction, we're going to be stripping back even further into the process. I know yesterday we had an opportunity to look at someone else's presentation and very experienced trainer, and how when we become complacent and we lose our recipe, that can have a significant impact to our ability to engage and hold space for a group. So it doesn't matter how long you've been doing this, it's really important that we remember the structure and the layers. As we talked about, this is complex, not complicated. Remember the layers and its replicatable results. So just a quick reminder, we already know this. We cover it every time because repetition means that this information gets embedded. So remember, it is a workshop. This only works if you put your 50% in. The ground rules are the same as they have been all week. If you have at any point any questions or anything that you'd like to add or change about the ground rules, please feel free to raise that at any time. So the course structure. The first day we introduced the ideals framework and we deconstructed that with the art of asking questions and the importance of the introduction. Just a quick recap. Why is that important? Why is what we do in the first 20 seconds crucial, if not imperative, to our ability to build rapport and engage with our group?
That's the expectations for the call and the session.
Absolutely. Yeah. Expectations. What else?
We talked about in terms of the attention window that the average person has and how you can grab them with that question so that they're all in and excited about what's next.
Absolutely. And the questions are also useful if you feel the group is drifting or people are kind of checking out or lots of people kind of cameras have gone off or whatever. This is a point of, are they still here? Are they still with me? Are they still paying attention? You could just chuck in how many of you at any point about anything. So the questions and the structure of the questions. Why specifically how many of you? As opposed to has anyone? Does anyone? Are you?
Because it sounds more inclusive.
More inclusive? And who am I asking when I say how many of you?
Who may I ask? Sorry?
Group.
The entire group.
Everyone.
Okay,
let me give you two examples. Yeah, it's a good clarification question, Cecile. How many of you is one question. Who am I asking? Are you? Different question. Who am I asking? How many of you, who is that being directed to?
Everyone.
Everyone. Are you? Who is that being directed to?
Just me.
Exactly, to the individual. That's why we asked how many of you. I'm addressing everyone. I'm asking for everyone to be involved. Okay. Yesterday, we talked about developing a connection, engaging in conversation, the 4 steps methodology, which was what? We will cover that today to refresh on that. And then we'll be covering actively encouraging, listening with sympathy, facilitating the questions. We'll cover that on Friday. And then Friday we'll be covering the deconstruction facilitation practice sessions. So 7 E's framework. This is what Duncan covered with you yesterday. Engaging your audience, keeping them with you on the journey. That engagement point starts at the very moment you open your mouth with a question at the very outset of the session. First thing that comes out of your mouth is something to engage the audience. And then we keep them with us throughout the journey by constantly asking questions, encouraging interaction and feedback, exemplifying. Give me examples today of how I have exemplified.
By engaging, asking questions, raise of hands,
Yeah.
mirroring people.
Mm-hmm.
Ground
Yeah.
rules, reminders. Yep.
Absolutely. But also, it's not just telling people what the ground rules are. I've been willing to observe and follow them myself, right? So exemplifying is, rather than telling you what's right and wrong and what you should and shouldn't do, is by leading by example. As facilitators, we have to show them, not just tell them. It's a very important part of this. This comes back to the authenticity, the vulnerability, being willing to, where appropriate, open up and lead by example by showing them this is what I'm encouraging you to take on. Empathy, and again, now we're looking at empathy not as a skill we're teaching our champions, but as a trait of us as facilitators.
Well, actually, respecting everyone's opinion, right?
Absolutely, yeah. But also beyond that, like Cecile, you said earlier in the session, and I'm really grateful you were open and vulnerable about this. You said it's been a long, challenging day. I've had some challenges. I'm feeling quite tired and not, struggling to be present, right? When we run our champions cohorts, you'll have people dialing in from all around the world. Duncan had a group recently. He had people from, ranging from, Midwest US to India. The guys in India, it was like 8, 9 o'clock at night when we started the session. By the time we finished, it was probably like 11 p.m., right? And imagine they've had a long, busy day. Maybe they didn't even log off. They worked all the way through. I don't know, right? You imagine what the energy levels will be like. If that comes up, and again, our job to hold space with empathy means to understand that you've got people coming from different backgrounds, different experiences, different cultures, different times of day, different energy levels, different ambient factors. As we've just spoken about in our role as champions, being empathetic is not assuming where they are, but just be willing to kind of understand where they are and ask the right questions. In our role as facilitators, that's even more important. Does that make sense? Because particularly our champions have volunteered to be a part of this program. And in the same way, like, someone that's shown up to be supported by a champion may have been gently encouraged to have that discussion. The champions have actually put their hands up and said, I want to be here. So, and we'll find, and often it comes up, a lot of our champions have attended this program because they've had a first-hand experience. They know what it's like. We've had people that shared some harrowing experiences in the champions groups. And it ranges from people that have lost someone through mental health, someone that had two children die through opioid overdose. It's all kinds of really, really challenging circumstances that are potentially likely to come up. And that may have been someone's inspiration to join the Champions program. So appreciating someone's perspective, view, their background, even if you don't have a first-hand experience of it. Empowering. In our role as facilitators, what does that mean? And again, I gave you several examples of that today. Someone asks a question or poses a perspective. I think, Maria, at the very beginning, you'd asked a question, and I really wanted to jump in and answer it. But what did I do? Did I answer it?
Turned it back on us, the participants, because you want to empower us. We're going through this session, not necessarily you or us when we become trainers or facilitators.
Yeah. What's the trap that many trainers fall into, particularly if someone asks you something that is in your skill set, that something's your area of expertise?
You answer.
Yeah. And remember we spoke about at the beginning, the ego naturally is like, I know the answer to that. I want to show how much knowledge I have and I want to tell you the answer and give you all the information. But is that always the best way to empower people, and particularly those who have children? Is it the best way to empower a child by giving them the answer? What's the phrase? I think if you give a person a fish, they eat for a day. You teach them to fish, they eat for a lifetime. You get them to watch End of the Line and they probably won't eat fish ever again because we recognize that it's not sustainable. Okay, all right, I'm going off on the tangent, but you get what I'm saying, right? It's our job is we're here to teach people to fish rather than to give them the fish, because that might help them in the moment, but long term it won't. And this is our role as facilitators. Our champions have come here. They've given up their time and energy. There's probably a reason they volunteered for this program. If we really want to support them, don't give them the answer, help them to figure it out. In what ways have I empowered you today? Which we've just spoken about. Often we'll, not often, well, sometimes we'll create some discomfort. Because I couldn't just give the answer and move on.
Yeah, you've given us the mic, Neil, in various ways, whether it's, and Duncan did a great job with this earlier this week, where he would tap on each of us to do the introductory slides just at random, like a popcorning. And so you're always ready and you feel empowered that your contribution, whichever way it's going to come out, is, valued in that space. And even if it's not the right answer, if there isn't one, that we can talk through it as a group.
Absolutely. But also, when you've got a program and there's certain things that you need to cover and you've got slides that have been pre-prepared and you're really struggling to get people engaged, right? And now you've created an opportunity for people to respond and it's not happening. And there's just silence and there's dead space and you're like, I've got stuff to get on with. If I'm worried about getting through all my slides, who have I made it about?
You.
And what is our role here? As champions, as facilitators of champions? Is it to get people through all the information, take them through all the slides and make sure they have had access to all the information? Absolutely not. What are we here to do?
To prepare our colleagues moving forward to help out our other colleagues with, any type of mental health issues that come up.
Absolutely. The word power, and you will have heard this all in your mental health champions training, quite literally means the ability to do or act. Our job is to give future champions the ability to do or act. If you give them the answer, you're not really helping them embed that learning. And there are many times today where there was silence, and as we spoke about with that extended silence I had with the example I offered you, that silence can be really powerful if people have been posed the right questions and given the right space to really figure that out. And if that silence goes on a little bit longer than you're comfortable with, then our job is to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Because otherwise you lose the game of chicken, right? And every time that you'll interject and you end up disempowering people because there's an expectation that my trainer, Dora, is going to give me the answer. So why do I have to work? Because if I sit long enough, she's going to break the silence, right? So the silence is only uncomfortable if you are uncomfortable with it. If you're comfortable, that's fine. If I have to wait 5 minutes for you guys to figure it out, that's okay with me.
And if I could offer too, because Maria gave me a really good tip yesterday in our feedback session, I'm very quick to, as a presenter of content, any silence to fill it right away. One piece of feedback she gave me that I've been practicing is if I start to feel that sense of sort of discomfort, she's like, always keep like a water or coffee and just take a drink, because it's amazing how much that can reset you as a facilitator. I've been doing that and it's made a difference in just a couple of days. That was nice.
Absolutely. So yeah, that whole empowerment piece is creating and holding that space and not feeling the pressure yourself, because any pressure you feel is self-created, right? And also encouragement. It's going back to that point. What if you are given an answer and it's not the answer you're looking for? It's not the right answer. It might not be something that is something that's relevant or even appropriate. Like, for example, so guys, what's the best thing to do to strengthen your bridge and increase your resilience to to dealing with stress. And I don't know, Meg says eat 7 donuts, right? We already know from earlier discussions, Meg likes to eat donuts.
Correct.
So she's kind of offered us this answer, and we can't, you know, we know that it's not necessarily appropriate. We know that the fundamental flaws with consuming refined sugar products and the impact that can have overall. But the moment I turn to Meg, it's like, oh my God, that's ridiculous. No, don't do that. Or even, I'm nice about it. That's not good, Meg. What have I done now?
Most likely she's not going to want to answer another question, or others maybe like, oh, I don't want to get it wrong. I don't want to answer.
Absolutely. Beth, again, you've drunk your coffees, bang on. You've not only shut her down, you've shut everybody down. Because, you know, Cecile was watching this interaction and thinking, well, I was about to say something. What if I'm wrong too? What if I'm going to say something silly? I'm just going to keep my mouth shut as well. So if it's something ridiculous, maybe I'll be like, thank you, Meg. Has anyone else got a suggestion? What if it's slightly off track? You're like, well, thank you for your response. What else could we do? If it's a good response, but still not what you're looking for, great, thank you, Meg. Yeah, we could go for a run. What else could we do? Does that make sense? Don't say good response if it's not a good response, but you could still acknowledge the person and say, thank you for sharing, or thank you for input. If it's something that's completely ridiculous, like, I don't know, like let's say Meg says, you know, if I'm really stressed, I like to kick my cat around the front room. I know Meg would never do that. It's, you know, I've known Meg long enough to be able to use her for a silly example. But the point is, if that's a bad example, or it's something that's actually downright inappropriate, what could we do? Because I don't want to be in a combative position. I don't want to be like, oh my God, Meg, that's awful. What could I do?
This might be a silly answer, Neil, but I was thinking, if a person is doing something as extreme as that behaviorally, as the example you just shared, I went right back to the pacing and learning piece that you were talking about. I don't know if they're actively doing it or they just share that this is how they need to burn off stress, but something to kind of de-escalate that type of response and talk about, you know, what's leading to that, or what could be a better outcome of that behavior or frustration, kind of going back to the wheel. That would be my initial thought.
Could be, yeah. Now, what you will get every so often someone that turns up as the class clown, even if they're not actually going to do these things. We have this on every second or third group. There'll be one person that thinks it's funny to say something ridiculous or inappropriate, right? As just as a form of humor. Now, even if it's just someone saying something ridiculous like that for the purpose of a comedy moment, the moment I shut that down or I in any way attack that, I've now actually shut down the group, right? So what do? I get the group to self-regulate. Okay, thank you, Meg. What does everybody else think about that? That when Meg's stressed, she likes to do the thing, whatever the thing is, kick the cat around the front room. And if there needs to be some regulation happening, let the group do that. Does that make sense? And particularly for those people that think they're being funny, often the only person, and I know this because me and Duncan are like that, like often we think we're funny, but we're probably the only ones that think we're funny, and everyone else is like, oh my God, did they just say that? But the point is, let the group regulate that, right? That's the best way to deal with that, because then the group will say, you know what, like, if Ryan is turning to Meg and saying, Meg, that's not cool, what are you doing that for? That doesn't in any way impact the dynamic of the group, in the sense that, like, they've had that discussion, but that's not impacting my ability to lead and facilitate this session. Does that make sense? And that's one of the things that's what encouragement looks like, is I'm encouraging the group to have these conversations. Particularly right now, we live in a world where if you don't agree or subscribe to the accepted mainstream narrative, then people are being shut down. There's a lot of people that don't feel comfortable sharing and opening up, and then they're given a space and a platform, and you'll find that all kinds of crazy things come up. So this is where we're using this safe space to create opportunities for co-regulation, if that makes sense. And that's where the embedding, we start with the ground rules, we reflect back to the ground rules, that we're constantly reaffirming what we set up at the very beginning. And then the evaluation, it kind of happens periodically as we go along. Give me an example of a question I use very often to create mini evaluation points.
You may ask, how would you put it in practice? Or,
Yeah.
you know, let's go to breakout and practice that and see how did it feel
Absolutely.
with those kind of things.
Yeah. How many of you notice I often ask, does that make sense? Yeah. Why do I do that? I'm giving you an opportunity. If you're sitting there thinking, I'm not sure if that makes sense, you have now a natural opportunity to be able to say, well, no, I don't get that, or that doesn't make sense. What else do we do at the end of every module or at the end of every session? Something we always do.
Asking who has a question. Yeah.
It's creating an evaluation point, right? Does anyone have any questions, comments, feedback? So we do that regularly and periodically as we go along. This framework it was originally, it was created as part of a manager's framework, but then we recognized this is actually how we run our training programs. So these ingredients, coming back to the cake Maria we were speaking about at the beginning, if you've got the right ingredients, you can replicate the results. These are the ingredients you need to have in place. Are we engaging our audience? And this is the questions Duncan asked you to reflect on with the video we watched yesterday of the experienced trainer. Was he engaging people effectively? Was he exemplifying? Was he empathizing, empowering, encouraging, and embedding? So let's have a comedy moment. Knock, knock. Who can tell me a simple joke?
Okay, I'll do it.
Excellent. Thank you, Bethany.
What kind of cheese can't you have?
Go on, let us out of misery.
Nacho cheese.
Oh,
Like not your cheese, nacho cheese.
You know what? I can't actually see your facial expression. Your camera's gone, but I'm just curious to see how you would have expressed that joke. Do you see how the joke loses the power when you can't see the body language of the person telling the joke?
Mm-hmm.
But okay, right. Let's deconstruct here, because there is a premise to your joke. That premise is also the same as the premise, the structure of a story. There is a science to telling a joke. In being absolutely serious here, I actually went on a stand-up comedy course many years ago, and I found that actually the art of stand-up is very much the art of telling a story. What is the structure of a joke?
there's always a punchline somehow at the end.
Absolutely. But you can't just introduce the punchline. It doesn't make sense. To get to the other side makes no sense, right? What do you have to do before you get to punchline?
You introduce, you set the set.
Okay.
You tell what's going on, and then you tell the joke.
Absolutely. So the first thing is the premise. The chicken, right? That's the premise. The setup. Why did the chicken cross the road? What's the punchline? To get to the other side.
Nacho cheese.
Holy shit.
So let's
Holy
deconstruct Bethany's joke. What was the premise?
What cheese we couldn't have.
So yeah, that's kind of the premise was the cheese, right? The setup was, why is it not yours? And the punchline was nacho cheese. A knock knock joke. What's the premise? Knock knock. Who's there? Right? What's the setup? Just a who?
Mm-hmm.
Just a silly old man. Punchline, right? And again, if we talk about any joke, any story, there has to be a premise, there has to be a setup, and there's a punchline. With every module we deliver, we are using the same structure. Why? Because it's easy to gain people's attention. The premise is the background. Now, we break it down into 4 further steps. And this, again, is just taking this into a into kind of a deeper exploration. The first step is the theory, or essentially, what is the subject? How is this relevant? What are we introducing? Then it's the story, the case study. Has this worked elsewhere? What's the proof? Why? Exercise activity. How do we bring this to life? Create an opportunity for reflection, and then action. How are we encouraging application? So let's think about something we've covered so far today. Let me just track back. For example, we spoke about empathy. So what was the subject? It was empathy, right? And the importance and relevance to our model of empathy. What was the story or case study offered around empathy? I gave a couple of stories. Think of one. I actually offered a story and a case study for empathy.
Your example with the individual who had gone through that traumatic event that you were coaching.
Yeah, that was one example. Another story was Meg strolling through the forest, falling into the wishing well. That was another story. Another case study was when I lost my dog recently and the people that interacted with me. Did you see there was like 3 or 4 potential stories or case studies attached to the theory of empathy? Does that make sense? Then we did an exercise, an activity. What did we do to bring this to life?
You did an exercise with me.
Absolutely. We did the role play, right? Maria, now you could do this one-to-one. You could do this with the whole group. You could put them into breakout groups. And Friday, Duncan's going to go through the 3-stage exercise. There's 3 aspects to how we can explore this in an exercise or activity. It could be a personal reflection, it could be a group reflection, or it could be a partner or a breakout scenario. There's different ways that we could do that. And then the last point is action. So particularly with empathy, what action? How are we encouraging practical application? What was the kind of conclusion we were drawing around the 4-step process we took people through with empathy? Where did we get to the end of that? The moral we were drawing and the encouragement to apply that knowledge, that theory, the exploration into something we do in that particular scenario in our role as champions. I even offered you another story of, for example, myself being in when I was working in the prison service and the experience I had there. We talked about, various different examples of where we can go too far in the right direction. What was the action? What was the conclusion we were drawing? What was the commitment we were encouraging people to take? The practical application of the exploration around empathy.
The unconditional positive regard idea, along with the way that we ask questions of one another, offer help, and hold space.
Absolutely. So the practical applications, we don't assume, we ask questions, we hold space, we listen, and we get comfortable even if you don't get the immediate response, right? So there was a practical application of this theory of empathy. We offered the stories to bring it to life. We had some opportunity to have an exercise and play with this, and then we're compelling people to take action with this. Does that make sense? There's that 4-step process. Now, another module that we had introduced was the bridge. And Duncan had sent you the PowerPoint, as I think you would have got that earlier today, whatever time zone you're in. And we're going to have an opportunity to have a bit of a practice and play with this. This is very simple. The theory is the bridge analogy. The story, the case study, you will have all heard my story about when I was sat on a plane, sat next to a structural engineer, introduced this concept of the bridge. You may have your own take on it. It could be the story of like, you got a bridge and you start putting load and effort and demand onto this bridge, and eventually it gets to the point where it's going to collapse under excessive load. What are the options? So there's a story, there's a case study, there's different ways that you can approach this. The exercise or the activity could be as simple as what's on your bridge, and encouraging people to either write down or have a group discussion with your group around what's on your bridge, how's your bridge doing, how do you feel about this framework, whatever. And then the last bit is the action. What are we encouraging people to do as a result of taking them through this module? Does that make sense? We use the bridge because it's an easy one. It's a very easy one to get your head around. And literally, you are going to present to your group the bridge using this 4-step process. This underpins any piece of content we deliver. It's always using these 4 steps. You introduce the theory, the idea, the concept. We bring it to life with a story or a case study. We encourage them to do some self-reflection or some work to bring this to life. And then the last bit of it is compelling action. Does that make sense? So I'm going to give you about 25 minutes to do this in groups of 3. Maria, if you could stay for the practice, I know you've got to shoot off, but the practice is going to be really valuable. If you do need to shoot off after that, at least you've had a practice today. I'd feel a lot happier if you had a chance to practice. And then I'll bring you back in about 25 minutes. You have at least 5 or 6 minutes each to do your presentation, and then a couple of minutes for feedback to each other. Please manage your own time with this, because I won't be able to tell you when to switch over. But I'll give you a sort of a minute's notice when you're about to be brought back into the main room. Is that good? What do you need to ask me regarding this exercise, or anything else that we've covered so far in this session? Bethany?
All good. Thank you.
Cool. Maria? Cecile?
No questions. But I feel myself very low on energy right now. And I'm just wondering if it's just me and how the group is feeling. You know, again, on scale of 0 to 10, I'm definitely not running any New York Marathon right now. It's not even standing in the crowd. So could we please have like 5-minute break or
Absolutely.
something else before we dive into the action? Because the action I think is good.
Absolutely.
But could
And
we have
Cecile? Totally happy. In fact, I'll give you 7. I promised you. No, actually 8,
Awesome.
because we had 7 minutes before. So happy to give you 8 minutes. But if it's okay with you, can we just finish everyone's check-in and then we'll have an 8-minute break?
Of course, of course.
What I would do before we leave, I'm going to set the breakup rooms. So you're already in your rooms. When you come back, you could just get cracking straight into your rooms. So
Awesome.
25 plus 8, whoever's good with maths, that's how much time we're going to have. So 8 minutes, self-regulate, come back after 8 minutes from when we start. We haven't started yet. And then you've got 25 minutes to do your exercise. Is that good with everybody? Cool. Fantastic. Dora.
I'm good.
Fantastic. Meg
Thank you.
All good.
and Ryan.
All set. Thank you.
Fantastic. Claire, is there anything you wanted to say before we put people into their rooms?
No, I have to jump off, but Melissa's here. Just see the end session. I see what you mean, Cecile. I think this is day 3, right, Neil? And it's been a couple of hours already. So I just wondered, and I don't want to interrupt the flow because I know this is really tightly scheduled as it is. But maybe if there's an opportunity to give back people half an hour or so today of the session, even if it was, I don't know, looking at the group, would you appreciate that? Would that be valuable for you if there was maybe some homework? Because I think we've got tomorrow off, so there's a little bit of a pause then anyway. And then we could reconvene Friday feeling a little bit more energized as well.
Yes, the only challenge is we have 2, Cecile and Maria aren't here on Friday, so we're already losing them for a day. So we're kind of under pressure. I'll do my best. Let's jump into the practice sessions. And then we'll see where we're at after practice, and if we need to look at what we carry over, then we'll do our best on that.
Thank you, Neil. Yeah,
Fantastic.
but great job, everyone, and really nice to see you all here today again. And yeah, super good work. Keep it up, right? A little bit of stretching. Maria does a brilliant energizer. She can do this on camera.
I'm running out of energy, believe it or not. So that's how tired I am.
Oh, that's not good. But I'll see you the rest on Friday, and for those in the Netherlands, enjoy King's Day tomorrow. Have a good day off as well. But yeah, take care, everyone. Bye bye. Thank you, Neil.
Thank you. Good to see you, Claire. Okay, so I am just about to open up the rooms. And once you have dropped into your room, start the clock, 8-minute break and 25 minutes for your exercise. So 8 plus 25, that's 33, is that right? I hope so. So, yep, enjoy your break, enjoy your exercise. If you need me, drop me a message. I am here and I will be here to let you know when the time is almost up. See you back in 33 minutes. Belly G, how are we? You're mute. I don't speak mute.
I said, I'm tired too. I think it's just the day.
Do you know?
It's just the day.
I hate, I hate it when I'm right, but like we were kind of so concerned, like you can't put people through a program like this online, and then it was just like we're struggling here with time and giving people extra breaks, and then it was like, oh, can we give them an extra half an hour off? It's like, well, no, like I'm going to meltdown. I don't know how we cover it all. It's an intense program. It's intense.
It's a lot.
And fair
It's
play,
a lot.
they are showing up, but it's like, I think particularly for our Netherlands colleagues, it's late there, so it's harder for them because it's they're what, it's already 6 p.m. there.
Yeah, it is late for them. I wasn't even thinking that.
How are you?
Yeah, good.
Excellent.
Good. I won't complain.
Don't, please.
Don't ask how are you really.
How are you really, Melly G?
Is this still recording?
Oh yeah, damn it.
I just got the pop-up on my computer.
Oh, it's fine. Duncan will edit it out. If I stop. Hold on.
Yeah.
Stop recording. Hold on.
Freaking Duncan.